Hi guys, thank you for coming to Reclaim's podcast video on fitness. So today we're gonna discuss all things fitness and how God fits into this narrative. So do you guys want to introduce yourself quickly? I'm just gonna go from who I see first. So Yuel.
Hi, yeah, my name's Yuel. Um, yes.
What else to say?
yeah, yeah, I love fitness. Sorry, I wasn't sure what else I was supposed to say.
Okay, cool. What does fitness mean to you?
I think fitness for me especially in my journey, has been just about dedication, about consistency, about putting your mind to something and following through. So sorry, I know I'm bouncing a lot, but
I was gonna
stop
say
bouncing.
your mic can pick up your bouncing.
It's okay. I
Go.
think we can ditch the earphones so that you have like more freedom as well. It's fine.
No, is it bad? Are the earphones
Yeah,
bad?
it moves, yeah.
Oh, really? They are bad? Okay, all right.
Yeah,
It's not good.
okay.
Oh, man.
Okay, Alicia.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alethea. I am 20 and I've been like trying to work on my fitness since I was in year 9. So I don't know how many, 6 years. So I think I've learned a lot, but yeah, it's been really up and down, like all young adults who say they're gonna work on their fitness. So yeah.
Okay, Jess.
Yep, I'm Jess, second year uni. Yeah, I think fitness to me is just like, I know, taking care of your body well, eating healthy. To be honest, I'm not a fitness junkie. I don't like, I'm not like hardcore, but I think even over high school and stuff, it's kind of like a routine, kind of mixed in with sports. So it just became a thing, and I was like, okay, yeah, just keep going.
Okay, cool. The first question that I want to ask you guys is, what do you guys think about the narratives we have around fitness in our society today?
I can start with something. I've thought about this a lot because I think, especially with like social media everywhere, it's like in our faces. Just the fitness world has also like morphed and transformed since I first started in like year 9. Like I think back year 9, it might have just been like, I started because I got really sick a lot. So I was like, okay, well, I need to like fix something because year 9 kids should not be getting sick like every 2 months. So then I needed to work on my like health system. So I started, and I think back then the most it was probably about getting flat abs and like a thigh gap, if you guys know what that means, right? And I think as it's evolved, it's actually been about like the idea of getting a particular body shape has just been like drilled into you. And the interesting thing is the ideal body shape has changed like every year, or like every 6 months it will change. And so like you would just get like a round of workout videos about a particular kind of like, thing, and then like 6 months later like the whole marketing style will change, and the body type you're gunning for like changes, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay. So I think a lot of the fitness industry now is like a lot about just vanity, and it's about looking a certain way towards other people, or it's appearing a certain way. And now it's even like athleisure has become such a big thing, so it's about like looking good while you're doing it. And so a lot of it is just about what you look like. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, well, that doesn't last very long. And so you hear some like influencers trying to be like, it's all about you, it's about like loving your body, and like it's getting better. I just don't think it's fully there yet.
I think what's been interesting is like seeing the way that things have progressed and changed over the course of whether it's centuries or decades.
Yeah.
Like even a little while ago, I mean, like quite a while ago, like to be really big and to be really like kind of like chubby, that was quite attractive because it meant you were wealthy. It meant that you had food. It meant that you like had enough to eat, and meant like people that were skinny were usually peasants, right? People that were skinny were usually like really poor. And so the ideal body shape back then was if you were fat, like that was almost like a sign of wealth.
And
so,
also light skinned.
Pardon?
True.
Light skin, because it meant you were indoors, you didn't need to work hard.
Exactly. I mean that, like, and also like the like Asia, like what we feel like is beautiful in Asia versus what we feel like is beautiful in the Western world. All these things play into it. So it's just, I've always wondered, right? Like, I mean, this is just maybe this is slightly off topic, so you can cut this if you want. But I've always wondered if I was born into, like, obviously like different kind of body shapes thinking, but if I was born as an octopus, what would I find attractive? Like, like it's like those kind of things. Or if I was born as a blob, right? Like this kind of a figment of my imagination, and blobs were all I saw. Like, would I just find blobs attract? Like, what is it that actually, like, even psychologically becomes attractive to us?
Yeah.
And is it just what we are told is attractive? Is it what we have, like what is that all about? So I don't know. That's just sometimes what I think about. Yeah. So random.
Yeah. That's really true, actually. I think everything in terms of like what you think is good or fit is very subjective.
Yeah. And it's so contextualized to what is just what you see, what you hear, what the people, even your community, and what they deem as, like attractive and stuff. And I think the other day I saw this fitness instructor that I follow. So her name is like Cassie Ho. So she runs the Blogilates YouTube channel, and she had an Instagram post which is so interesting. And she goes, it's interesting that as fitness instructors, our bodies are our billboards, and people look at our bodies as a definition for how successful our workout programs are. And she goes, but that's not fair, because like I just genetically cannot have what some other people have, but I can tell you I'm stronger than they are. But it's like, I was like, that's so interesting, because there's also like genetic makeup, right? That makes up. But like I physically cannot have the hips or whatever that somebody else can have, right? And like even just like the female male body structure is just so different. And I was like, that's so interesting that even with our fitness instructors, that you would judge them or the success or whatever based off how like their body looks. And so yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, so based on all the things that you guys raised, which are like really, really good points, and all the voices we have in society today, what are some of the issues that you've personally faced on your fitness journey, and how have you overcome them, if you have already?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so as a uni student now, even when I was doing it in high school, I think my mindset was always like, initially I did it just to get healthy or to build my immune system. But I think the more that I started like going into the fitness rabbit hole of like the internet, the more I was like, oh my gosh, there's like these 3-month like transformation things. You know how like you always see those like workout programs like before and afters. And so I think literally for the past 4 years, I think up to this year, I always had this like ideal like 3-month period where I would change my life around, everyone would notice it, and then I'm like, cool, set for life. And like that's just how I always approach my fitness journey. It was like, all right, I want to rededicate the next 3 months. Like I'm gonna tell my friends and family and like watch me change. It would just be like whether it was over the winter for the summer or like for the summer, like okay, guess I'll just survive through the winter and then like show up in summer. And what ended up happening was I would only be able to pull through like 4 or maximum 6 weeks of like an intense workout program. I would like completely try to shift my diet. And after 4 to 6 weeks, either I would get really sick or like I would just get really busy, or like, exams would hit or something would just happen. And then I would be like, okay, a few days off, and then it would turn to like 3 weeks off. And I get to the point I was like, yeah, I give up. I'll just start again next month. And then, like, but I would never get back into it. So it would take me literally like 6 weeks of doing it as intensely as I could. And then I would like hit an obstacle, give up, and then it would take me another 6 weeks just to like I would just be like, oh, if I can't do one thing, then I just won't do anything. And that was my mindset, because I was so all or nothing. And so then that happened like at like 6 months at a time. So that was like that cycle. And I think this time around this year, I really like try to like shake myself awake, and I realized that what I had gotten into was I started looking at my habits as the end goal. It's like when I exercise every day, that's how I know I'm successful. Or like that's how I'm healthy, when I can consistently exercise every single day without fail. And so then when I don't exercise for one day, I'm like, okay, well, like I've just failed, right? Like I just screw it. And then when I don't exercise and I won't eat well because I'm like, see, there's no point doing it. And then everything like derails. But then I think this time I started realizing that the whole point of fitness and the whole point of looking after my health, that's not the end goal. It's a means to an end. And the end goal is living like a sustainable life. It's to like live a fruitful, flourishing life. It's to be able to do all the things in my life without feeling like within my limitations, but not letting that just like choke me right at some point. And so when I realized that mindset shift, it really helped me like just realize, okay, I'm doing this for something else. So even if this isn't perfect, that's okay, because that's not the end goal. And then to realize that, yeah, it's actually more about progress than perfection, and that was something that I had to like literally to just drill it into myself every day. It's just like, okay, just gotta show up. You just gotta show up. And even if it doesn't look perfect, like that's okay. It's not about exercising every single day, but it's saying I'm taking the time to look after my health. And if today that looks like sleeping in, then that's okay. As long as I can honestly say that's what's best for my health today. So yeah.
It's actually interesting. Like when you said that, like I remembered actually a point, probably about like 6 years ago now, 6 or 4, 5, 6 years ago, where Chanel and I were actually running our cafe at that time. And we were actually going to go on a holiday to Bali. So we were going to take all of our staff on a holiday to Bali. And so for about a 3-month period, I was like, okay, gotta get rid of this cafe body. Right? Gotta get rid of this bacon and eggs and like coffee every day, kind of body, and like gotta get fit. We're going to Bali, it's important. And I remember I started eating salad like every day. I was eating salad every day. I wasn't drinking any soft drinks. I was just drinking sparkling water, eating salad like every day. That was what I was doing. And I hated it. It was the worst, right? And then at the end of that, I actually developed colitis. Now, I don't know. So it's kind of like Crohn's, but a little bit different. And I don't know if that had any correlation. I don't know. I'm not a medical person. But when I was diagnosed with it, what they said was, yeah, you can't eat vegetables. Like you can't eat uncooked vegetables. So you can't eat raw vegetables. You can't eat grains. You can't eat nuts. You can't, like, those things are really bad because you can't, your digestive tract cannot process it. And I was like, bro, I've been doing that for the last 6 months, or like 6 weeks or whatever it was. I was like, that's all I've been eating. So when I developed this like condition, I was like, was it that? Like, and I remember wrestling with that. I was like, Lord, is this some kind of punishment? Did you punish me for like being vain or like, wanting to get in shape? Like, is this, and obviously I don't really think that's what happened, but it was definitely that process that I went on. And it was so funny because the doctor actually gave me a kind of like a menu, or like not a menu, but like suggested things to eat, right? And like Chanel literally read it after I got diagnosed, and she was like, "You got to be kidding!" And I was like, "What?" She's like, "This has to be a joke, right?" Because it says, "Okay, for breakfast, eat blueberry pancakes with maple syrup. For lunch, have a burger but no lettuce. And then for dinner, have this other piece of meat but no uncooked vegetables." And I was like, that's literally like a dream.
Yeah, living the dream.
Right? So anyways, but yeah, since then, pray for it. I think I'm in remission. If not, I have been healed. But yeah, so that was a part of that journey as well. Just remembered it when you were talking about that, Al.
Dang, is that why I never see just like a solid amount of greens on your plate?
I mean, Chanel thinks I use it as an excuse. She really does. But I'm like, no, it's a medical condition. And she's like, you've been healed.
So
I'm like,
That's hilarious. Because like, yeah, it changes what's actually good for your health at that time. And so
exactly.
it's important to be flexible with that. Yeah.
Mm.
Jess, what about you? What have you struggled with or struggling with?
I think for me, like, yeah, exercising is just to maintain, I don't know, like healthy, staying active. You know how your parents always like, you're young, so make sure that you stay active, make sure that you go out for runs. You don't want to get like bones that hurt, and like osteoporosis and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just listen to them. And I think something I struggle with is when it doesn't become a routine for me anymore. I start to get really disappointed in myself. I think I'm similar to you, Alethea, when like you just miss one day and you're like, oh my gosh, are you serious, kind of thing.
You
like
spiral. I'll start again next week.
yeah, but I think like for me in like primary school, high school, it was just a routine for me to do sport as my fitness. And so like my parents would always encourage me to do every single Saturday sport every single term. And so literally I did so much sport in high school, and I would just like participate. And then, when you graduate from high school, you don't really have Saturday sport. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to the gym. Like, I guess that's what adults do. So I went to the gym. And like I was introduced to the gym before that as well, a little bit at school, and like we did box exercise and stuff, and that was really fun. But I don't know, different stage of life. And so I was like, okay, and it was 2020 as well. So I was like, oh yes, I have so much time now. But then the gym's closed, and I was like, okay, I guess I have to do it by myself and be disciplined. And so I think it actually worked out really well. Just like the combination of lockdown, first year uni, not really having anything on my plate, and just like trying to exercise at home. I think I did it consistently almost every day, or at least like 3 to 4 times a week. But I really didn't really have anything on my plate except for uni. And that was like a routine for the
Mm.
majority of 2020. But then in 2021, when things
Yeah.
went back to normal and uni went back in person and the commute is like 40 minutes
Yeah.
and there's no point in me coming home. And like I hadn't signed up to the gym again because of COVID last year and everything.
Yeah.
And so I was still on that whole like routine of doing exercise at home.
Mm.
But then everything got so hectic this year and I didn't have much time at all to exercise or have that space for me to kind of just like get everything off my head and like be
Yeah.
active. And so then I think this year I was really disappointed in myself and kind of struggled with accepting that, life does get really busy and
Mm.
things happen, but you have to make the time yourself.
Yeah.
And try and figure out if you don't have time to exercise at home, like when you come back from uni or when you come back from things, like I had to kind of reevaluate, well, what other ways can I
Yeah.
exercise instead of just like, doing workouts at home,
Yeah.
cardio, blah, blah. Like, even walking to uni or like walking everywhere around campus can be a form, or like doing things while I'm running or stuff. So
Good.
yeah, I think that was a struggle.
Or like
But
lifting plastic bags while you know.
Yeah.
Has anybody else ever done that?
Yes.
Like, am I
Yes.
the only one? Okay,
Yes.
cool. Literally, I do that like when I'm walking to the car or when I'm shopping around.
Oh my
Sometimes,
God.
like, I'm like natural workouts.
But the
imagine
worst thing,
people-
yeah, no, the worst thing is I do that and I'm like, oh, my brain tells me you're done for the day. Like, it's fine. You've already exercised.
Oh my gosh. Or it's like when you just like sprint for the bus, you're like, all right, run done. Done. 10 minutes of cardio, my Fitbit counted it. That was intense.
No, those things actually make me feel really depressed because every time I have to sprint for something, literally I end up like so out of breath and I feel so
Yes.
and I'm like, man, if I was actually running from someone, I would actually be dead. I would literally not last. Like that was like 10 meters. Like, what's going on? Like I always feel that in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess even like I find it really interesting that you guys talked about the things that also get into the way because like fitness takes up so much time. So what do you guys do to balance between looking after your physical, mental, and spiritual health?
That's good. Well, I'll answer this
Mm.
first because I was thinking of what Jess was saying. And I think over my many rounds of trying to figure out that transformation, and now I'm like, okay, it's not about a transformation. It's literally just like every day. And it's going to change as long as I prioritize actually, just prioritize my health. I realized over those many rounds what actually works for me and what works for other people. And I had to learn that what works for other people doesn't
Mm.
always work for me. And so for me, one of my like patterns that I find just because of my current lifestyle is once I leave the house, there is no guarantee that I'm gonna do anything back at home. You know what I mean? Like I can tell myself I'll come home early and do it, but the reality is that's not gonna happen. There's not enough motivation or pull or incentive for me to come home. And even if I'm home with enough time to do it, I'm just like, I just want to not think when I get home after a whole day of whatever.
Yeah.
So I then realized like, okay, I need to stop avoiding the fact that I'm a morning person. And then I had to actually realize, like, especially during this level, like this round of lockdown, I've like really experimented with like the times that I've slept and what I do in the morning and what I do at night. And I'm just actually realizing, wow, like when it comes to doing things for my health, in all those three things, so mental, physical, and spiritual, the best time that I can actually set aside for that is for me in the morning. Whereas I know that some people, you ask them to do in the morning, they will like never, like they will flake every single time you ask them to do a workout online. But then you ask them to do it at 11 p.m. at night, they're like ready to run. And I'm like, I cannot move. I'm like ready to knock out. So just like our bodies work so differently, right? And so for me, I understand it's also because I'm locked down, so there's less like interruptions into your schedule. But I think I've tried to practice what I think is a sustainable routine, even when lockdown lifts. And so for me right now, that looks like a 6 to 9 a.m. when my phone is completely off. Um, then that's time for me to like, get changed, make a cup of tea, journal for my mental health, and then work out for my physical health. And in there, I might like listen to a podcast, which just helps like me just learn something for myself. And then have time to like read the word and just meditate and pray and do that for my spiritual health. And I find that by the time 9 o'clock hits, my phone turns on, I start reading messages, I'm like fueled and ready for like the obstacles that come about my day. But I think for me personally, I think it's also because I'm a J. You know, like the Myers-Briggs, like at the end, I'm a J. So I'm someone who needs structure. So I need to know when I'm going to do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. Whereas I know other people, they need that flexibility in their day. So I guess just really part of it is figuring out just how you best function and things like that. Yeah.
I think where I have found it important in my journey is understanding is less about balance, I think,
Mm.
but it's more about priorities. Like what is your main priority, right? Like what, like if you think about like that, you know, those triangles, like those food triangles, or the triangles of like existence, where you first need like food and water, and then you need like shelter, and then you need like whatever it is, and then at the top then you can have like those extras. I think like it's about figuring out what's at the base of
Yeah.
your triangle. Is the base of your triangle like, you know, physical health, or is the base of your triangle mental health, or whatever it is? And then from there, understanding what builds upon each other. So what if, for example, if you only had 1 hour free in your day, what would you choose, right? What would you want to spend your time on? What would you actually go towards? And understanding what is priority is actually really important. But I think another really big thing for me in this whole process, because I don't know about you guys, but there are days where I literally do not want to exercise. Like I'm like, I have eaten KFC for lunch, I ate McDonald's for breakfast, and I had pizza for dinner, and I literally don't feel like working out, and I feel like so unfit. I feel like a blob. There's also that I don't feel like, you know, really getting into the word or in prayer. I'm like, look, my mind is on so many other things. I literally can't focus. Right? There are all these different things that happen, and I think the other thought that I've always had is it's about quality, right? Like, why am I doing it? Like sometimes I'll push myself to do it regardless, but the quality is very, very, very like, you know, very low, or it's not really that good. And whether that's like, you know, with spiritual or physical, emotional, I've always told myself, okay, what do I feel my body or my I guess my person needs right now?
Yeah.
And what is the most important thing? Like, do I feel like, hey, I've had no time to think about anything today, I just need to sit and think? Or do I feel like, hey, I actually really want to get into the word today? Or like sometimes I'm like, hey, I actually feel really excited about exercising. But there are days where one of the things that's actually helped me personally, like in this whole lockdown, is actually like getting like a home gym. So I've got like a gym in my garage. So now like that time thing is like way easier because I don't have to drive anywhere. I can just literally like, hey, give me 10 minutes and then just jump outside, do a couple of exercises and then come back in.
Love that.
That's been really helpful. But there's been some days where I'm sitting on my bench, about to get into exercise, and I'm like, man, I literally am not feeling it at all today.
Yeah.
And actually getting to a point where I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to do it today. Like you literally like, and it doesn't mean that you were unfaithful with this. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. And actually going on that journey and learning that process and actually allowing myself to have those off days has helped the days that I'm on to be way more intentional and much more quality, like much better quality. And that's with everything. That's with the word. That's with, you know, even like, you know, having space. Like some days I know I'm not gonna have any space from the kids or from people, and I've just got to be okay with that, right? And mentally prepared, go in. But then days where I have like time to actually think. So I think it's about priority and actually the quality of what we're doing. So that's how it probably, yeah.
So I think for me, because there was always that separation of like, I'm just working out so that I can be healthy and like, I was like, hey, I guess live sustainably. And like, pretty much it was essentially at the beginning to look good. And then I was like, yeah, that's just not enough motivation for me to keep going. that was like in my ruts. I was like, Sieves, man, like, it's not worth it. Like, I don't actually really care that much about what I look like. And then, and then last year I hit a really, really big point of like burnout. And I think at that point I was like, what do I actually need to live a sustainable life? Because someone was saying it, I think I was listening to a sermon, and they're just like, God can only bless the extent of your ministry to how like long your body can actually take it. Like, because the reality is, if you're dead, then like your ministry's like you're gone. Like, there's nothing else. There's no other way that you can like be serving people or preaching, because like your body physically cannot take it, right? And so he was really trying to encourage this idea of like your body's a temple of God. And I'd heard that over and over and over again. I was like, where is it in the word? I just don't get it. Like, where is it in the word? And then I was studying 1 Corinthians, so I have it open. And this is what like it just like was like a little light bulb moment, and I was like, oh God, it actually says it in the word. So in 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16 to 17, I'll just read it out. It says, do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him. For God's temple is holy and you are that temple. I was like, all right, cool. And then you keep going to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 to 20. And this is in the context of like sexual immorality and why your body is important. And I
Mm.
think it applies both that as an extreme example, but also all the other little examples for how you do look after your body. It says, or do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, for you were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. And I think after reading those two passages, along with just Psalm 139 of like, you know, for I'm fearfully, wonderfully made, and you knitted me in my mother's womb. I think God brought home these three like statements for me. And I think this is what to me linked the mental, physical, and like the spiritual. But
Mm.
it's that like yeah, the like what you all saying, why I even do this, why I even think about self-care or exercise or nutrition or caring about the sustainability of my health. It's that God made me so every part of me is beautiful. I think that's so important when people struggle with like self-esteem and body image and why I'm doing this and is it for vanity and whatnot, right? It's just saying like, hey, God actually made this. So the fact that I can run, the fact that I can move, the fact that I don't have COVID right now is a blessing. And so every part of me, doesn't matter how my body shape naturally is inclined to look like that God created that. That's
Mm.
glorious. The second thing is that Jesus died for me, so I am worth looking after. And that's what it says, right? It says like you are not your own, for you are paid by a price. And so me realizing like, dang, even the way I look after my health shows other people how much I recognize that like I am worthy and like
Mm.
and if I believe that I am valued. Because Jesus could have died and just be like, all right, well, your spirit's just gonna go to heaven. But it's like, no, he gave us the opportunity to actually physically live out our life. So therefore our body in itself is a gift. Um, I was like, that was mind blowing to me to be like, oh wow, like my health is also a gift. Like the fact that I can breathe every day, like that's a living gift from God, and He calls that worthy. And it says like you are bought with a price, and that price is like the life of Jesus Himself. I was like, that's crazy. And then the third thing is that the Holy Spirit resides in me, so my body, like I am also a mission field. Like I am, I need to invest in myself too. And the way I balance all that, because I think nowadays the fitness world talks a lot about like self-love and self-care, right? And it's like you do you, like you look after you, and the emphasis is always on you. And I always had a problem with that because I'm like, but what if you're not worth, like what if you just get to the point where you're tired, you can't be bothered, and like, you know, like what you all said, and like what if there are days where just repetitive you just don't want to do it, because that happens. Like sometimes we get in those like depressions, or we're in the lockdown and like you don't find any purpose in anything. And I think what helps like balance that for me is like Jesus' commandment, which is like to love your neighbor as you love yourself. The focus of it is loving your neighbor, but there's an underlying understanding that you're also loving yourself. And so there is, yeah. So like when I look after my health, I'm like, this is for me, and this is a way for me to worship, and this is a way for me to glorify the body that God's given me. But it's also a way for me to make sure that I'm able to give people the best that I can when I'm with them. And so it's always like juggling the two. It's not all about you. It's not all about other people, but it's like both of them like hand in hand.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually
that's
want to jump in on that as well. That's really good, Al. I think just to also just jump in on that idea of how does it connect to spiritual stuff?
yeah.
You know, how does the physical and the mental stuff connect to spiritual stuff, or emotional health? I
Mm,
think what for me, and like I don't have much to share about this, but I think one thing that has always been at the forefront of my mind is thinking about what, like even that first question that you asked, Adeline, just even what does fitness mean to you, right?
mm,
The whole idea that it actually is a reflection, I believe, on character.
yeah,
And I believe it's about, actually self-control. It's about commitment. It's
yeah,
about dedication, consistency, all these kind of things that we know we want to be as people.
yeah,
And we know that are really good characteristics to have, but it's just more of an outward expression of what is
yeah,
probably internal, right? Our inward thoughts, our inward kind of desires. It's just an outward expression. Are we able to kind of do those things in a different forms, not just in a church setting,
mm,
not just in a family setting, but just even in a physical setting, like even for your own health. Are you able to do these things? Are you able to commit to something,
yeah.
be a person of your word, get down to it, get it
That's
done?
good.
And so these are things like even for me that I've also wrestled with, and thinking about, just even like times of prayer or times to actually, spend with the Lord or whatever it may be. All those things are intertwined. And I think those things for me has been why these three areas are so they're inseparable in a lot of
Yeah,
senses, right? And so like a lot of people say, why do you, is it because of vanity? Are you doing it because of vanity? And there's an element, obviously, I think that everybody who exercises, there's probably an element of that where you're thinking about how you do appear, right? How
mm,
you do physically look. But I think there's much deeper reasons why people actually do exercise and why people do care about fitness. And
yeah,
it can deal with even character things that, like, even for yourself, wanting to be able to say, yes, no, I can commit to something. I can
mm,
actually follow through with A,
good.
B, and C. So, yeah, just some thoughts.
Wait, Jess, I want to ask you this question because you said you always just sort of like went with the flow, right? Like
Yeah.
with like sports and stuff. So was there ever a moment where like after high school and you graduated and you couldn't just do like social sports and you tried to exercise on your own? Was there a moment where you felt your mindset change?
I think, okay, maybe like throughout 2020, I think not really. I just still went with the flow and like the routine of like, well, I signed up to the gym, so I guess I have to go, right? And like, yeah, I think my mindset kind of, I don't think it's changed, but I'm noticing a few like different thoughts.
Okay.
I think recently this year, especially um, because like, you know, my routine failed kind of because of uni and like just life going back to normal.
Yeah.
But I think also because I think it has to do with the people that I'm around. And so
Mm.
specifically my family. And so the thing is, my like everyone in my family is so into exercise and like sports and just like being active and all that kind of stuff. And it just like recently just blew up, I think, at the end of last year. And so like my mom has been really into going to the gym and like she goes like every single day in the morning now. My dad like really into tennis and like also gymming too and just like running. And my brother, oh my gosh, he's like so into just like even his like body and just like everything about him is like
Yeah.
I don't know. And then my sister, okay, she's a bit more lazy, but she still is like she's more like she's still like a sporty-ish person. And so I
Yeah.
think like everyone in my family, I would say is like cut out for it and like cut out
Mm.
for sport and like fitness and everything. But for me, I was never like I know that I'm not cut out for sport. Even when I played sport and stuff, I kind of just did it because I was kind of like strongly encouraged by my parents to do
Mm.
it. Um, but yeah, I think recently I have, I mean, yeah, like the rest of my family being so into that kind of motivates me a bit more to like work out more, I guess, more often. But I think it also, yeah, kind of affects the way that, um, like, I guess you can see yourself. I think for me, I do tend to compare myself a lot to people. I think it's normal for people and it's kind of something that you have to navigate through and have to kind of resist. But overall, like I've always had that problem of um like comparing myself to other people in like school or other areas of life. And then recently it kind of came up like in the fitness world and just like exercise and everything. And I'm like, oh my
Mm.
gosh, like I'm not cut off for sport, but like everyone around me is, and like everyone around me is doing it. So I need to do it too, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I think it hasn't really been a mindset change, but um I don't know, it's definitely sparked something where I have to think,
Mm.
um, like, why am I going with the flow with this routine? Like,
Mm.
yes, it's good, and I like routines, and I like you know, going the flow with things. But, um, like, why am I suddenly thinking about like comparing myself to like people in my family, or just like
Mm.
I don't know, just like the whole um way that they exercise or why they exercise, and just I don't really know what I'm saying, but I
Oh
think
yeah.
that yeah.
I think those thoughts are really important. Like I love that you brought it up because it can be really subtle
Mm.
thoughts that start going into a different direction. And yeah, so yeah, I guess it's important to also create new metrics of success or other markers of when you know you are healthy. And I think everyone, I don't know if it's possible to come up with a very as in there's like universal like BMI and like body fat percentage and blah blah blah, but there's like just in terms of like that holistic kind of health, it's like, yeah, am I making time for myself? And just like, how am I reacting to something, and how much in my mind is my mind thinking about it? And what are my motivations? And am I like and does it completely devastate me when I eat like a donut or a cookie, like just there are different ways of tracking for you where
Mm.
your health is at. And I think, yeah, like I love what you just said. It's really
I mean,
important.
I think that's actually a very interesting comment because, I mean, you guys have probably heard of like, like where there's bodybuilders or different people in the gym who just die of heart attacks. And these are
Yeah.
very fit people, but like internally, like maybe they had like arteries that were really clogged. I mean, I've personally been
Mm.
Mm.
called skinny fat by a couple people that really hurt, right? Like, oh, you look skinny, but you're fat internally. And I'm like, oh, You know that?
Oh.
It was a friend. It was a friend. She's a doctor. So she said she was trying to do it out of love by saying, you got to watch what you eat because you may appear not overweight, but internally your organs and your probably your arteries are very clogged. And she's like, you're skinny fat. And I was like, you know, like just like that kind of stuff. But then I think it's also the reality is that actually at that point when you look physically the most shredded is actually when you're actually the weakest and also when you're not actually that healthy, right? Like, you know, sometimes the way that we push our bodies to get a certain look actually ends up with us being less healthy and less
True.
kind of overall, like, you know, fit or, you know, strong than if we look kind of normal, like, you know, just kind of just like not as like whatever the ideal picturesque
Yeah.
Adonis kind of body looks like, and just like a regular person, because we need fat. Like, you have fat on your body for a reason. You kind of have certain things for a reason, and we've kind of pushed it to the extreme
Yeah.
of this body dysmorphia that now we think that's what we need to look like, and actually is actually quite damaging for our bodies and organs internally.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways.
It's a really
Yeah. I think an important thing to like point out as well is that with social media nowadays and with like photography in general, like it's crazy how you can like alter your own perception when you're taking a picture. Like an angle can change everything. So like even with social media, it's like I don't know, I was watching this video the other day and then the title was your favorite influencers don't actually look like that in real life. And it's
That's so
actually
funny.
true because
I
like
love
when
it.
you look when you literally look at the video, it's like a lot of it is like angles, and like when I'm editing myself, it's honestly so easy to like go into like of an app and just like edit a photograph and like smooth out the skin or whatever, like what they do for like editorials or like magazines. So honestly, like what you see is not reality, like actually. And I think for me that has been like the key point of me realizing that like the people on social media don't even look like themselves. Like I don't even look like myself
Yeah.
sometimes. Like I post on social media, I'm like, that's not what I look like when I wake up. And it's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, just knowing what your measure of success is. If it's someone else that's unrealistic, then like you'll never get there.
Yeah, no. So on that note, that's a good note to end the conversation. So I would like to thank you guys so much for coming on to Zoom and filming this. I've learned so much from like you guys. So thank you so much for coming on.